in mind to take on those characters in that story?
So Blake's gonna play every character ever. She says she's retiring. She's just gonna be in every movie.
Yeah, he's your favorite. So
Blake Lively could have chemistry with a rock. I could have been just a tree, and there would have been chemistry. She's she's that talented. So I take no credit. I'm excited. I'm holding on to my rock here, Colleen.
Right? Like literally leaning on each other for support right now.
Nerve-wracking
I think
day.
it was really important that we acknowledge that, yes, this is a movie about love and hope, that we don't shy away from the issue. And so we brought on our partners at No More, and they were involved in the making of this movie from the beginning because we really wanted to honor survivors in that.
Under a rock because I hadn't heard of Colleen Hoover before they came to me with this movie. But the person that I was in the car with, Eden, and Eden shrieked. She's 25 years old. And then I ended up going to a local bookstore like an hour later in this tiny town, and the windows were just covered in Colleen Hoover, Colleen Hoover, Colleen Hoover, Colleen Hoover.
She has such a dedicated fan base, and like her, I mean, you yourself fans like really authored success of your stories because like she wrote stories that resonated with people. She went directly to the people that she was speaking to, and like they came forward in masses. I mean, her record is crazy. They should create a Hall of Fame like just for her. Like her numbers are wild.
hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. The ongoing drama of It Ends With Us is a complex tale, weaved with many conspiracy theories and narratives. What hasn't been discussed in depth is the history of this film, the history of this feud, and why two opposing narratives collided and two opposing people collided and came together to make a film in 2022. Justin Baldoni had approached Colleen Hoover after reading her book, It Ends With Us, in 2019. His new production company, Wayfair Studios, made the decision to purchase the rights to two of her books, It Ends With Us and It Starts With Us. Two books with the same characters, with this book, It Ends With Us being the beginning and It Starts Without Us would be a potential sequel. It Ends With Us was by far Colleen Hoover's biggest selling book. And book talk and Facebook and grassroots movements are how she became a mega author, selling millions and having a book on the bestsellers list for over 150 weeks. Blake Lively was approached by production in the hopes that she might play Lily Bloom. It was 2022, and by Blake's own admission, she never even knew who Colleen Hoover was. No clue. Blake said that someone in the car with her knew who Colleen was. And this excited her because she saw that Gen Z was lit up about Colleen Hoover. Then she went to a bookstore and saw that the bookstore was filled with books by Colleen Hoover. Then she started to learn about the millions of books that she has sold and the possible huge platform this movie could become for her, a box office success, and an opportunity at more films, possibly with the author. Blake Lively was desperate for a comeback and desperate to become a mogul and not be labeled box office poison and difficult on set. Blake Lively's film history is littered with box office bombs, and the last movie that she had been featured in, Rhythm Section with Jude Law in 2020, will go down in history as one of the most catastrophic box office failures in history. Her last film, Rhythm Section, was released in 2020 after it had been shelved in 2018 by her production company due to a screening where it showed poor performance. Blake's film was eventually released in January of 2020, and the box office was dismal. The budget of the film was over $50 million, and the film pulled in only $5 million total. It was actually removed from theaters very quickly, and the production company and studios lost $40 to $50 million on the project. Blake Lively's career was in a nosedive, and this failure made her take a big step back. And apparently, she even at one point debated no longer acting. She had also released a film, Cafe Society, with Woody Allen, that had not fared well at the box office, and another film from 2016, All I See Is You, lost almost $30 million. Blake's film history and her lack of success at the box office and her lack of consistent work due to the fact that she and Ryan were having 4 kids in a very short succession, and she put her career on hold while Ryan's career soared. She was desperate to prove herself and prove to Hollywood that she wasn't a failure. So It Ends With Us was a comeback, and a comeback for her that could not fail. And because of that, she took ownership. She and Ryan took ownership. And despite claims by Lively in her new amended complaint that Ryan never said that he rewrote the script or that his hands were all over it, that's not what sources connected to her were telling tabloids in June of 2024, way before there was ever discussion from Justin's side of a creative difference on set, way before there was a hint of a feud, well before any of this. Blake was already leaking stories that she was behind this film. A Blink and You'll Miss It exclusive with In Touch magazine, which received limited pickup, actually stated that Blake Lively's It Ends With Us has to work as she seeks a Hollywood comeback, published on June 4th of 2024. And it said she's keeping her fingers and toes crossed that her soon-to-be-released movie, It Ends With Us, is a big summer hit, as she vies to get back into Hollywood in a big way with the full support of her husband and personal marketing guru, Ryan Reynolds. Interesting, right? Ryan Reynolds, personal marketing guru. Blake has finally wisened up and has tapped into Ryan's savant-like expertise when it comes to marketing to the masses and getting the word out that a project is special, a source told In Touch. Even though he's not involved on paper, Ryan's fingerprints are all over Blake's multi-pronged campaign for It Ends With Us. So even before there was a marketing campaign, this source was saying that he was behind the marketing campaign. The movie has to work for Blake to continue to be a movie star. That was the leading narrative. It's based on a successful enough book that if the movie isn't profitable, Blake will have egg on her face. That's where Ryan comes in, and it's no coincidence that his production company is called Maximum Effort, because that's what he gives whenever he puts his mind behind one of these unusual but promising films or projects. Notice how the sources leaning into this, that Blake is incapable and needs the expertise of her savant husband, who is a amazing marketer, the amazing marketer that came up with Grab Your Florals and Your Friends. And then also notice how it's minimized as though she had to get smart enough to take his advice and that she couldn't have done this on her own. They list him as an advisor and an unconventional thinker on the marketing side, and she wouldn't have taken this project on without him. But this project is also very personal to Blake, and she has been the driving force behind it because it's about things that are important to her and define her family life. The idea that love can triumph over adversity is a big deal to Blake, and this movie is going to be a celebration of it. Ryan is cheering her on and providing strategy because he believes Blake could be the biggest actress, producer, mogul this side of Reese Witherspoon, and just needs a few more hits under her belt to be thought of that way by everyone in the movie business. It's interesting that her view of this was that love can triumph over adversity, and not what Justin's focus was, which was survivors of domestic violence and their path towards healing and a journey to discovery and breaking cycles. She wanted it to be about love, love triumphing, which is really what she said to Christy Hall in her email when she apologized to Christy for stating on the red carpet that Ryan Reynolds wrote the rooftop scene. She said that she believed that fans wanted to see love and the triumph of love, and that her having her husband involved would show the audience that love. There's been a lot of discussion that the brains behind this is Ryan Reynolds. And if you start to look at it, the ego behind it is twofold, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. But for a source connected to her to say that she has been the driving force behind the film, when she came in 2022 and the filming didn't start until 2023, and she wasn't the person that put together the film, didn't own the rights, but she took over this because this was her comeback. This is what she needed to succeed, to prove to Hollywood that she was the next big mogul. Blake was becoming an afterthought in Hollywood. She had been getting bad headlines for mocking Kate, Princess Kate, when the whole Where's Kate when Kate was going through treatment for cancer. She got backlash in 2023 when she was announced that she had a alcohol line, even though she has been someone that claims that she's a non-drinker. She received backlash for being a Lily Bloom and the wardrobe that you've now learned, was behind, which still to this day does not make sense to anyone that watched the film. So in Blake's amended complaint, she wants people to believe that even though Ryan was involved, this wasn't about Ryan. And to try to position Ryan as an anti-feminist, that's what she said that Mr. Baldoni is doing. But that they started a smear campaign against Ryan and Blake in retaliation for sexual harassment on the set. Even though up until March of 2024, and in her amended complaint, she agreed that everything was going great. After they got approval and they made the workplace safer and everything finished and wrapped up, she and Justin were even communicating into March and into April. But then when it got competitive and they needed to come up with a cut, that's when Blake started exerting more and more of her control. So she was fine with him for months and months and months and months. And then when she wanted control of the film, that's when he became a problem again, right? Even though everything had been resolved, even though she admits there had been no other issues in over a year, but now there was a problem with him. When you view the complaints that she has against him, many of them can be conceived as miscommunications, misinterpretations, or blowing situations out of proportion. Her claims that he fat shamed her don't make sense when you look at Justin's evidence of having back problems, and she has this suspicion that he's fat shaming her, even though she was the one that made clear to him that it was her responsibility to be in shape for the film. Justin never said she had to be a certain size or weight to be in the film. Justin never shamed her in any of their communications about her side and was deeply empathetic to it. She had just had a baby. He was being understanding. She put a lot of pressure on herself and has admitted publicly that she pressures herself to be thin. Hollywood is brutal and there's a lot of expectations on women, and it's not fair, but actresses deal with this all the time. This doesn't seem to be what happened on the set with Justin. She claims that he is a predator because of a podcast he made where he talked about consent with the nonprofit No More. She referenced the podcast in her amended complaint where Justin's having a conversation with the woman from No More about how consent when you're growing up is confusing. And when you put it against the backdrop of looking at adult content, it can become even more confusing. And so for some men, because the prevailing narrative very often is no means yes or no means try harder. And he said under that context, could he have pushed boundaries and not respected consent or not asked for consent? And he said yes. He never said that he sexually assaulted anyone. It was a wider conversation about what does consent mean? How do we teach young men and women about consent so that everyone understands consent? and his own self-reflection on how he became to understand consent. She says that that proves he's a predator, and it really doesn't. It's a nuanced conversation about consent.
Conversation comes in, of course, but then when you hit 11 or 12 and your friends have a phone and maybe you don't, and you're being shown things on the phone for the first time, and that's cool. And then you start to think that that is what women want. And,
Correct.
porn, as we know, no means yes or try harder, right? Quoting our good friend Ted Bunch at A Call to Men.
Correct.
It starts to become very confusing, which is definitely something that happened to me. I'm sure I have crossed boundaries and lines in my teens and 20s, not even thinking about it, simply because of the porn that I was consuming. You are what you consume. It's that simple. And so many men, so many of us men, I would argue that in the high 90s are consuming it on a daily or weekly basis. And that is absolutely influencing the way that they see the world, the way that they see their relationships, and the way that they view women as objects and not people.
Justin was having these conversations openly on his podcast and on other people's podcasts for years. Nothing he said there is wrong. And the wider conversation is about teaching children consent at an age where they're starting to learn and question about sex. And then helping young men and women understand the boundaries of consent, the words that have to be given to get consent. And that consent can be given and retracted, even though they say yes. When they say no, it's no. And these conversations are open conversations where he's vulnerable about his own challenges where he was younger consuming adult content. Justin's willingness to have conversations like this is opening up doors for other men to have an opportunity to express how they've struggled with their thoughts about it as well. Blake also states that a similar conversation like the one I just showed you happened with her in a car, and that she says that he did things outside of consent, which isn't what he's saying. And if he's having the same conversation that he's having here as he's having on with Blake, it's the same conversation he's been having publicly for years. This does not prove that he's a predator. It proves that he's engaging people in a wider conversation so that men and women understand consent, because education is power and understanding boundaries is important. And Justin is 41, I'm 46, and I will say that when we were growing up, this was a huge miss for our parents. We grew up and we weren't taught these things. No one talked about consent when we were kids. You were lucky if you even got your parents to talk to you about sex, period. And then to talk about what consent meant, no way. So he's looking at it from that backdrop. And I understand completely because I grew up in the same generation as him. Blake is weaponizing that against him to say that he's a predator. And then Ryan Reynolds is doubling down on his hatred for him because remember, he's the dragon. He's Khaleesi's dragon. And he's, for better or worse, as Blake said, either a tool for either like a benefit to Justin and the production or a weapon. And Ryan is thinking that he fat shamed the wife. Justin says that he's brought to his apartment and he's ridiculed and scolded and dressed down. And it happens in front of other people. There's corroborating witnesses to this event. There's no proof that he ever fat shamed her. It's her perception that he did. And it's her perception that things happened in scenes that were choreographed that he crossed lines that she didn't want to cross, that she didn't want him to cross. And yet there's actual video of her crossing lines with him and teaching him how to pull her in when they're not even working together, like in a scene, and there's no filming happening. And there's definitely no intimacy coordinator on the set. Justin's body language is in a tense position and he's not touching her. He's not reciprocating any of the touch. And she pulls him in and she does it. And then she's telling him how to pull her in for a scene. And this is a scene where they're walking down the street and they're supposed to kiss. So if she claims that he sexually harassed her, he could claim the same by her doing that because he wasn't reciprocating. It wasn't scripted. There wasn't an intimacy coordinator present. And this was after they returned to set in 2024. So under this backdrop of his wider conversation of consent his discussion openly about consent, and this being something that he's passionate about and what his frame and what his entire platform is built on. And if Blake knew who he was when she took this role, she should know that this is who he was. These were conversations he was having on his podcast. This was something that he was passionate about. It was why he took this film. And there's an actual SA scene in this film. So naturally, these kinds of conversations will come up. And sets are nuanced. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it's not uncommon to have personal conversations and business conversations at the same time when working together. But Ryan Reynolds pounced on this, and he used this as a way to alienate Justin from the wider players in Hollywood. He's at the Deadpool after party when it premiered, and according to Justin, he's telling people there that Justin's a predator. He's pulling their agent aside and saying that they need to drop him because he's a predator. Ryan Reynolds is going out of his way to frame Justin as a sexual predator, to alienate Justin from the wider community, which is kind of ironic if you think about the fact that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds didn't seem to have the same reaction when she willingly was part of Woody Allen's film Cafe Society years after he had been publicly accused of SA by his daughter Dylan. There was nothing. They said nothing about the allegations about Woody Allen, and they said nothing about the allegations about Harvey Weinstein, and they were both repped by Leslie Sloan. Leslie Sloan was at one point the PR person for Harvey Weinstein. And now Leslie wants everyone in her request for dismissal to forget that she worked with Harvey. So Ryan's going out of his way to make everyone believe that Justin's a predator, even though Miss Lively has actually worked with men that are actual predators. But Ryan's motive here, if we can get back to the beginning of this video, is this is a comeback. And if we get back to the beginning and she sees dollars, she sees an opportunity to become a mogul. They already stole the Deadpool franchise from the first director. Why couldn't they do this with It Ends With Us? She was intrigued, Blake, because of the amount of sales that Colleen Hoover had and the fandom that she had, because that converts to dollar signs. And then when Ryan is said to have been named by Blake on a red carpet where she said, "My husband is the one that wrote the rooftop scene." This is the same scene that she got mad at Justin for not giving her feedback for, not and wanting that scene to be a part of the film. She claimed she wrote the scene, and that's when she brought up the dragons. And then a year later, we find out it was Ryan that wrote the scene. When this news hits the fan, when Blake's the one that actually lets it out of her mouth that it was Ryan that did this, after she had been covering from him, claiming that she was the one doing this, someone connected to Ryan, one of his reps, says the real reason Ryan Reynolds jumped in to save Blake Lively's new film, It Ends With Us, from disaster. Ryan's opinion of the script was that the film was going to be a disaster because the script was not a good script. He jumped in to help the film from disaster. Ryan has every right to stick up for his wife, especially when it comes to a project she is so passionate about. Ryan knew when he saw the script that it needed help. Together with Blake, they made sure that it was not only brilliant, but reflective of what the story is about. It's interesting that Ryan's ego knew that this script, which was written by Christy Hall and based on the book by Colleen Hoover, he said it needed help. And he was the one that could fix it. And only he. And their brilliance is what made the script better. That's a lot of ego. That's a lot of you're less than me. And his own agent, Ari Emanuel, has finally admitted that there is a power dynamic at here, and it's not fair. And that Ryan and Blake have way more power than Justin. So he comes in to rewrite the script to save the movie from disaster, completely undermining the fact that there was a scriptwriter, a screenplay writer. The book was based on Colleen Hoover, and neither one of them read the book. So how would they make the film better and what the story was about? How would they know if they didn't read the book? How would they know how to make it better if they didn't read the book? The issue they claim was that Baldoni was focusing on what he believed was the abusive male viewpoint and had a very chauvinistic approach to the topic. Ryan didn't want this to fail for anyone, especially his wife. It was nothing against Justin, but Justin took it personally. It's not Ryan's fault, nor does he have any apology to give. He got nothing out of this. He didn't want any credit. He just wanted his wife, Blake's first big break back into the business, to succeed. He feels in many ways that Blake sacrificed a lot to raise their children while he was able to continue his dreams, and feels that he owes her so much. He loves her more than anything, and he wants her to be able to achieve her dreams, and she still will always have her husband's help, guidance, and support in whatever she does. This is the issue. In Colleen's book, Lily identifies right off the bat that what happened was actually DV. She has confrontations the minute the first incident happens with her boyfriend in the book, and says to him, "You hit me," and lets him know it wasn't an accident. This is clear that Lily understands that he hit her, and it's clear that Ryle knows that he did too. But they don't want that view in this film, because then, as Blake has stated in interviews, and the way that the marketing plan is put together by Ryan, DV and being a victim of it is almost being blamed on the victim.
Haven't experienced this, thank goodness, go, whoa, it was, I fell in love too. I saw the red flags, but they didn't look red. They looked kind of fuchsia and cute. But like, I ignored them, and I see why. It's like women are people of multitudes, and I think that it was important to me that it didn't just feel like someone's interpretation of like female gaze. Like it really was, this is what we like. She didn't come into it as somebody who was super vulnerable or susceptible to someone coming in and overwhelming her and traumatizing her. That she came in with real spice and sass and agency, and she had both feet on the ground and her head screwed on tight. And she's of like levity and life and humor, but this is also a little jaded given what she's experienced. And she's open and vulnerable. She has all of those colors, but she's not a delicate flower. She's not a wilting lily.
Blake in an interview said, how could she miss these red flags? Why did she ignore them? Why did she stay? As though staying with someone once you've been hit makes you stupid and makes you not strong. And she wanted to make Lily a hero. She wanted to make it seem more like it was an accident. She wanted the viewers to not hate Ryle, and wanted to make it look like Lily was confused by what she was experiencing and didn't understand. And my interpretation is that if they're saying his view was chauvinistic, his view was probably coming from Colleen's book, where Lily knows what's happening to her. Ryle knows what he's doing to her. And every single incident of DV in the book, it is clear that both of them know it's not an accident. There's no coming to terms at the very end of the film, like in the film It Ends With Us, where Lily finally realizes what happened to her. Lily knew in the book the whole time what was happening. But Blake felt that if you show it that way, people are going to think that Lily is stupid. But if you show it like she doesn't understand, then somehow you're showing it through the lens of the female. Which the problem here is that she must not be a victim of DV. Colleen has admitted she's not a victim of DV. I don't know if Justin is, but if there's no one on this writing staff that's been a victim of DV, none of them can actually truly represent what it's like to be a victim of DV and really truly say why a woman stays. But that's where the fight is. They don't want Lily to look weak, but the book clearly shows Lily telling Ryle, "You hit me." If that's what their fight is about, and it's chauvinistic for Lily to recognize what happened to her and it not be fooled by it, that's their bias, that DV is the fault of the victim and they're stupid for staying. And in her complaint against Justin, they are trying to say that Justin wanted to paint Ryan Reynolds as anti-feminist. But in truth, the way that they view DV and the way that they're marketing DV is actually anti-feminist. It's internalized misogyny on her part. It's this concept that you have to be a weak person if you're going to be abused. She doesn't want people to think that strong women can become abused. She doesn't want to be viewed as a weak woman. And she's viewing a atrocity that happens to a woman as a sign of weakness. And it's not. No one asks to be hit. It's, as Justin said, don't ask why women stay, ask why men harm. And when you frame it in that context, it's not about the woman looking weak for staying. It's why does the man continue to harm when he knows he shouldn't be doing it? If it's chauvinistic for him to say that, I want to live in bizarro land with him. So when it comes to the global situation here, they were viewing this as an opportunity for the two of them, Ryan and Blake, to become a power couple, a force in the world of entertainment. There's very few couples in the industry that both have equally successful careers and that both are moguls. I don't believe Ryan to be a mogul. I think Ryan makes Marvel comic movies and has done some blockbusters there. But overwhelmingly, he's not that great of an actor. He has made some business choices, yes. But Blake, on her side, is not known for being a mogul. She's not even known for being a good actress. She's not known for being a director or a producer. And at the end of the day, it's the ego of them that believe they're better than and know more than Justin and even Colleen because they can rewrite the script. Only Ryan knows that the script is bad and only he can save it and only they can save it. And that's narcissistic. So what's the truth here? To me, and I want to end this way, is that when I see comments from my followers that have followed for years say to me, it's really unfortunate for you to be swept up in this smear campaign they started against Blake. You're so sexist. I can't believe you, Katie, of all women, could be this sexist. You are a champion for other women. I am a champion for women, but if you're going to be objective in your research and you are going to follow the breadcrumbs that she has left and the evidence that she has presented in her documents, and you watch the videos that she claims prove that he's a predator, and they don't say that, and he has evidence that shows that the fat shaming never happened, and there's evidence that she actually was being aggressive with him and pulling him in and touching him without consent, and it's documented on film. It's not a smear campaign. When you can go to the Facebook groups and see where it started, where the backlash started, where the origins of the hate began, when you see that it started way before Justin ever hired a PR firm, when you can look at one side and another and you can see the power dynamics, when you can see that she refused to sign her contract, that she kept leveling for more and more and more power and used her husband's fame and her fame to get what she wanted, to demolish him. I'm not a champion for that kind of woman. I'm not a champion for Ryan because I don't think Blake's tyranny on this set exists without Ryan's ego. And I think that's why Ryan is being sued by Justin, because he knows how much ego and control of Ryan is behind this. And I don't believe it has to do with insecurity that he thinks Baldoni likes his wife or his wife likes Baldoni. I don't think there was ever any level of attraction between the two whatsoever. I think they're too opposite for that to even have been an option. I think it's ego and greed. She couldn't fail. She couldn't have egg on her face. She couldn't become box office poison. She was going to be the next Reese Witherspoon. The difference is that Reese has talent. Reese has an Oscar. Reese has dozens of films behind her. She's not Reese Witherspoon. She's Serena from Gossip Girl, a Nepo baby that married a controlling husband, and her controlling husband and her took over a film. And their internal misogyny is weaponizing feminism against us to make her feel like she's a victim, but she's not. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up Please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed. Click the bell so you never miss a video. And I've been really enjoying the conversation in the chat. I've been responding to as many comments as I can. So make sure to tell me all the thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.